Hey everybody, I'm Nancy. Thanks for stopping by my channel, A Square Pillow Isn't Square. This is the place where you will learn anything and everything you wanted to know about home deck sewing. Today's tutorial is going to be how to make an unlined gathered bed skirt. There's nothing hard about this, but what you do need is a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and a little bit of space. If you have those three things, you can do this. The first thing you have to do is find these two measurements. This is the length and width of your bed. In my case, this is a full-size bed. My box spring is measuring 53 inches wide by 74 inches long. The other measurement you're going to need is the length of your bed skirt, which is also known as the drop. In my case, I've determined that I need a 15.5-inch drop. Add up the length of the three sides of the bed that you are going to take your bed skirt around. In this case, it's 74 inches down one side, 53 inches across the foot of the bed, and 74 inches up the other side. That total length is 201 inches. So the next thing you have to do is determine the fullness that you want your bed skirt to be. I wanted mine nice and full, so I decided to use 2.5 times fullness. If you're not sure how much fullness you want on your bed skirt, I will link here to a little video that I made that shows the differences between 1.5 to 3 times fullness on a couple different fabrics, so that might help you. But as I said, I've decided on 2.5 times fullness. So I take that measurement that I got when I took the three sides of my bed, 201 inches, I multiply that by 2.5. So I need to come up with 502.5 inches of running length of fabric to get my bed skirt. Because I need to add a couple of inches for little narrow side hems on each end of the skirt, and I just want a nice even number to work with, I'm just going to call it 504 inches of running length is the amount of fabric that I need to go around the bed. As for the length or drop of my bed skirt, all you'll need to do is add 3 inches to your finished length. So I need 18.5-inch long cuts. Okay, so how much fabric do you need? Unfortunately, I cannot answer that question. It depends on the size of your bed. It depends on the amount of fullness that you use. It depends on your fabric and whether you can cut it like it's shown on my table here, which is along the lengthwise grain of the fabric, or do you have to cut it across the width of the fabric because you have a pattern and the direction requires that you cut it that way. But in my case, I have 56-inch wide fabric, so I can get 3 cuts out of a width of fabric, 18.5 inches long, which is what I need for my bed skirt drop. And because I can get 3 cuts of fabric out of my width, I need to take my total running length, which is 504 inches, and I can divide that by 3 in order to figure out my yardage. So I need 3 cuts, and each cut needs to be 18.5 inches by 168 inches. So 168 inches is about 4 3/4 yards. So that's how much I need to make my bed skirt. Okay, now that all that math is over, let's cut out our fabric and sew our widths of fabric together. I only had 3 long cuts, so I only have 2 seams to sew. And anytime I'm making an unlined product, I like to serge or zigzag or overlock my raw edges. It makes a much neater finish, and in this specific case, I'm working on velvet, and it makes quite a mess if you don't finish the edges. So I'm going to serge all of my raw edges as well. And let's go ahead and finish our 2 short ends of our long piece of fabric. This is a double 1/2 inch turned hem. Right, let's talk about our bottom hem for a moment. I am turning a double 1-inch bottom hem. I'm doing that because I actually am going to do a little bit of a decorative stitch along the bottom, and I'm going to use my stitching line that will now be about 1 inch up from the bottom as a guide to do my decorative stitch. So you can use a double 1-inch hem at the bottom like this, but for an unlined bed skirt, especially one like this out of velvet where the stitching line is pretty noticeable, you can actually do a very, very small bottom hem, like a double 1/2 inch turned hem is also perfectly acceptable. But in my case, I'm turning up 2 inches, pressing that 2-inch fold, and then folding again to the fold, which gives me a double 1-inch hem that I will now top stitch all the way along that 504 inches of fabric. Now, if you're a glutton for punishment like I am, and I thought it'd be real pretty to do this little decorative stitch along the bottom, I picked this little scallop stitch on my machine. It's stitch number 19, and I used my top stitching line as a reference, and I went back over that entire length of fabric with my decorative stitch, which took a little while, but I'm really happy with the result. All right, let's set aside the skirt fabric for a minute, and we are going to cut out the fabric that is going to go between the mattress and box spring that our bed skirt is attached to, and that is called the deck. Now, for the decking fabric for a bed skirt, I always just use a lightweight drapery lining because I have plenty in stock. But you can also use an old top sheet or any lightweight fabric that you have on hand, because this is never going to show and it's strictly going to just be what your skirt is sewn to. But you will cut your deck 1 inch wider and 2 inches longer than your box spring measurement. Once you have your deck cut out, the next step is to just finish the top edge, the headboard end of the deck, and I just simply turn a double 1/2 inch hem and top stitch it down. Now what we want to do is divide our edges, our 2 long edges and our short edge at the foot of the bed. We want to divide it in sections, and we're going to be dividing the deck in sections, and we're going to be dividing the bed skirt itself into sections, and that's going to help us when we go to adjust our gathers, so that we can kind of do it incrementally and make the job a little bit easier. So I'll start by folding the deck in half lengthwise and putting a pin in the center bottom, or making a mark of any kind, pencil, chalk, whatever you want. Then I will fold it in half in the other direction, the widthwise direction, mark the center, and then fold it again into quarters. So now my long edges are divided into 4 even sections, and my short end at the foot of the bed is divided in half. Before we divide our bed skirt into sections, we have to prepare it to gather. And I did a video on the fastest way to gather large amounts of fabric, and it's done by doing a zigzag stitch over a strong cord or thread. I'm going to link here to this video. I'm not going to take the time to go into the detail about how to do that since there's a video teaching that, but you will prepare all 3 sides using this method. Now we're going to divide our skirt into sections. First thing you're going to do is fold it in half as shown on this diagram. So here you can see I've lined up my 2 finished ends, and I'm going to work that fabric all the way down in 2 layers until I get to the very center fold. And I'm marking that fold with a double pin so that I can easily find it. All right, I'm going to try my best to explain this as simply as possible, but what we're trying to do is mark our long bed skirt in equal sections just like we did our deck. So here you can see in this photo, I've got my deck coming out from underneath this velvet on the right, and you could see the finished end near the top, and you can see my first pin. When I divided that long edge into quarters, there's my first pin, which is about 18.5 inches from the end. My bed skirt was 74 inches long, so when I divide that into quarters, they came out to be about 18.5 inches. So that is where that first pin is marked. And now what I'm going to do is translate that section onto my velvet bed skirt. So if I have an 18.5-inch section of deck and I have allowed 2.5 times fullness, I'm going to multiply 18.5 by 2.5 times, and that's the amount of velvet I'm going to have to fit into that section of bed skirt. And here you can see I've put the first pin on my bed skirt at about 46 inches. You don't have to worry about fractions here and being really precise. We're talking about a large amount of gathering and you're never going to notice a 1/4 of an inch here or there. So I just made it simple. I've put my first pin at 46 inches and I'm going to also put another pin on the layer right underneath. So I'm doing both sides at the same time. Now just move down your velvet and make 3 more sections 46 inches long. So these total of 4 sections that are 46 inches on your velvet are going to be what you're fitting into your 4 sections on your bed skirt. And now as you get down near the folded edge of your bed skirt, you are going to find that what is left over is going to be about 2.5 times the size of the sections at the foot of the bed. Wow, hope all that made sense. So anyway, now what you should have is marks on your bed skirt and marks on your deck, and you should be able to lay your bed skirt right sides together against your deck, and you should line up your marks and your pins, and it should look something like this. All right, now we are going to pull up our gathers and fit them onto our deck. The way that I usually do it is I will start on one end and I'll work the gathers all the way down to the bottom corner of one side, and I will adjust that side completely before I move on. I really take the time to try and distribute my gathers as evenly as possible and use as many pins as needed to make it sewing at the machine easier. And once I'm finished adjusting that side, I will usually tie off my cord to hold everything in place just by doing a figure 8 around a pin like this. Now that one side's done, I'll go to the center bottom and I will just pull out my strong cord that I zigzagged over right from the middle, and I can pull up in both directions using this cord, and I will go ahead and finish adjusting the gathers on the foot of the bed. And the last step is to start at the top of the other side and work your gathers all the way down to the bottom corner, adjust, pin in place, and you're ready to sew. Okay, now carefully take it to your sewing machine. Be patient for this last step. Adjust your gathers as needed as you're sewing your edge. I stitch about 3/4 of an inch away to give myself plenty of room to cover all of my zigzag stitches, and you did it. Not gonna lie, that was a tricky video to make. I hope it was clear. I hope you understood it. I hope it gives you the confidence to make a gathered bed skirt on your own. If you like this video, please check out the others on my channel. Please go ahead and follow my channel by subscribing so you know when I post new videos. Thanks so much for watching and happy sewing.